"Your kind doesn't belong here," Harold Vance bellowed, his voice slicing through the morning mist as he shoved Adsila to the sacred earth of the Shoshone hill. Kanti's blood boiled, her trembling hands gripping a stick as she struck Vance, her heart a storm of fear and fury. Adsila's ragged coughs echoed in the tense air, drowned by shouts and threats, as Kanti stood at a brutal crossroads. Defend her son and their ancestral land, or run to save his fragile life. Kanti, a 33-year-old Shoshone woman in 1905 Idaho, held the heavy mantle of her tribe's rituals, guarding the sacred hill where she prayed. Haunted by her husband's murder at the hands of militia, she poured her strength into raising Adsila, her 11-year-old son, whose lungs struggled against the bitter cold of their harsh world. Caught between shielding the hill from greedy silver miners and securing medicine for Adsila, Kanti faced relentless strain. Her fragile trust in Laura, a white journalist fighting for justice, sparked suspicion among her people, who doubted her devotion to their ancient ways. The sun barely kissed the Shoshone hill as Kanti knelt beside Adsila, her fingers guiding his small hands to pluck sage leaves. "Feel the texture, son," she said softly, her voice warm with pride. Adsila squinted, mimicking her careful touch, his questions about the hill's spirits tumbling out like a stream. Kanti wove tales of ancestors, their whispers alive in the wind, her eyes glowing with reverence. A rustle broke her focus. Laura, the journalist, stepped forward, clutching papers that spoke of land theft. Kanti's stomach tightened, the words "mining company" stinging like a slap. Laura urged her to fight through words in print, but Kanti hesitated, the weight of her tribe's distrust heavy on her heart. She glanced at Adsila, his eager face lit by dawn, and whispered a prayer to the spirits, begging for strength to protect their sacred ground. Harold Vance's boots thundered onto the hill, his men trailing like wolves. "This land ain't yours," he snarled, his face twisted with scorn. A clerk waved a paper, branding Kanti a trespasser, while Vance mocked the sage bundles as heathen nonsense. Adsila stood, voice trembling, defending his mother, only to be met with Vance's cruel sneer. When Vance shoved Adsila to the dirt, Kanti's heart roared with fury. She screamed for him to leave, her hands shaking as she gripped Adsila's shoulder. Laura scribbled notes, her pencil racing, but Kanti's world narrowed to her son's frightened eyes. The sacred hill defiled under Vance's boots. Kanti's rage surged as she snatched a stick from the ground, her knuckles white. "Apologize to my son," she demanded, voice cracking with defiance. Vance laughed, calling Adsila a sickly brat, each word a knife to Kanti's soul. Adsila clutched his chest, coughs tearing through him, his face pale with pain. Unable to bear it, Kanti swung the stick, striking Vance's shoulder. He stumbled, cursing, his men lunging to hold her back. Their grips bruised her arms, but Kanti's eyes burned, locked on Adsila's trembling form. Laura snapped a photograph, the flash of fleeting light in the chaos, as Kanti's heart pounded with the consequences of her desperate act. Vance clutched his shoulder, vowing to see Kanti jailed for assault. His men retreated, leaving a crumpled warrant that branded her a criminal. Kanti knelt by Adsila, his shallow breaths a dagger to her chest. Laura whispered comfort, promising to find help, but Kanti barely heard, her mind reeling. Adsila's tears soaked her sleeve as he begged her not to be taken away. The hill, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap closing around them. Laura urged her to hide, but Kanti's gaze lingered on the sage, the spirits silent. Her heart ached, torn between fighting for her home and shielding her son from a world eager to crush them. Kanti sat by Adsila in the dim light, his coughs echoing like a cruel drum. She weighed her choices: flee to the desert with her weakening son, or surrender to save him from pursuit. The thought of losing the hill twisted her gut, but Adsila's frail hand in hers begged for life. Laura's words about evidence against Vance flickered in her mind, a faint hope. Kanti feared the journey might break Adsila, his lungs too weak for the wild. She recalled her husband's dying words, urging her to guard their heritage. Packing a small bundle of herbs, she resolved to prepare for both paths, her heart heavy with dread and determination. Adsila's coughs grew sharper, his small body slumping against the earth. Kanti checked his medicine, her fingers trembling as she found only a few doses left. She crushed herbs, desperation guiding her hands, but they offered no relief. Adsila whispered, pleading not to leave the hill, his voice a fragile thread. Tears stung Kanti's eyes as she held him, her powerlessness a crushing weight. She thought of a healer in the tribe, miles away, but time was slipping. Kanti decided to seek Laura for more medicine, kissing Adsila's forehead with a promise to return, her heart fracturing as she stepped into the dawn. Kanti met Laura in a shadowed corner of a dusty tavern, the air thick with tension. Laura handed over a vial of medicine, her eyes earnest, saying she had contacted a chemist to test evidence. She promised a damning article if Kanti could find proof of Vance's crimes. Kanti recounted the attack, her voice low, fear of the warrant tightening her throat. Laura suggested sneaking into Vance's camp for documents, her words bold but risky. Kanti's trust wavered, wondering if Laura truly cared or sought only a story. Taking the map Laura offered, Kanti felt a spark of hope, tempered by the gnawing doubt of betrayal. Kanti trudged to the Shoshone camp, Adsila's medicine clutched tight. Hastian, the elder, met her with a scowl, accusing her of betraying their ways by working with Laura. His words cut deep, branding her an outsider in her own home. Young voices rose in her defense, sparking heated arguments among the tents. Kanti pleaded, explaining her fight to save the hill, but Hastian's cold stare silenced her. He demanded she cut ties with Laura, his authority unyielding. Kanti left, her chest tight with rejection, the hill's silhouette a lonely beacon as she vowed to prove her loyalty through action. Under moonlight, Kanti gathered herbs and water, her hands steady despite her racing heart. She folded clothes for Adsila, each piece a reminder of their fragile life. He asked where they were going, his eyes wide with fear, and Kanti soothed him with a gentle lie. She chose a hidden cave near the hill as their refuge, its shadows a promise of safety. Studying Laura's map, she traced a path through the wild, away from prying eyes. Kanti knelt on the hill, praying for the spirit's guidance, her voice a whisper. She warned Adsila to keep their plan secret, wrapping him in a shawl, her love a shield against the coming storm. Kanti and Adsila slipped away at midnight, the hill fading behind them like a fading dream. They navigated the forest, twigs snapping underfoot, avoiding the open trails where danger lurked. Adsila stumbled, his strength fading, and Kanti carried him, her arms aching but resolute. Distant barks of dogs sent a chill down her spine. Baxter's men were hunting. Kanti found a stream to mask their tracks, the cold water biting her skin. They reached the cave as dawn broke. Adsila's breaths, shallow but steady. Kanti held him close, her heart a battlefield of fear and hope, knowing their fight was far from over. Kanti tucked Adsila into a nest of blankets in the cave, the damp walls swallowing the faint light of dawn. She kindled a small fire, its warmth a fragile shield against the chill, but her eyes darted to the entrance, fearing discovery. Adsila's cough softened under the medicine's touch, his face less pale but still drawn. Kanti sat close, weaving stories of Shoshone heroes to ease his trembling heart, her voice a steady anchor. She counted the remaining medicine, her stomach knotting at the dwindling supply, each drop a fleeting hope. Her mind churned with plans to return to the hill, to find proof of Vance's crimes before time ran out. Adsila gripped her hand, begging her not to leave, his eyes wide with fear of losing her. Kanti kissed his brow, promising caution, her heart torn between her son's safety and the hill's sacred call. A shadow flickered at the cave's mouth, and Kanti's breath caught, her hand seizing a stick. A figure stepped forward, silent, leaving a pouch of herbs and a scrap of paper before vanishing into the dusk. Kanti's pulse raced as she unfolded the note, its scrawl warning of Vance's plot to poison the hill's herbs. She recognized the work of the mysterious sower of herbs, a Shoshone enigma whose aid felt both blessing and riddle. Adsila, curious, asked about the stranger, his voice weak but eager. Kanti hesitated, torn between trust and suspicion, but kept the pouch, its contents, a lifeline. She studied the note again, her resolve hardening to uncover Vance's treachery, her fear for Adsila fueling her courage. Kanti pored over the sower's note, its words etching Vance's betrayal into her mind. Poison spread across the sacred fields. She recalled the wilted sage, once vibrant, now brittle under her touch, and anger flared in her chest. Deciding to investigate, she planned a return to the hill, her heart heavy with risk. Adsila, sensing her resolve, pressed a woven bracelet into her palm, his small voice urging care. Kanti left food and water for him, her hands trembling as she tucked him in. She slipped out, the forest cloaking her steps, the notes warning a fire in her veins. At the hill's edge, she paused, whispering a prayer to the spirits, her eyes scanning for danger as moonlight bathed the sacred ground. Kanti crept through the hill shadows, the night alive with whispers of wind and owl calls. She knelt by the herb fields, her fingers tracing dead stalks, their decay, a silent scream of violation. Digging gently, she caught a sharp, unnatural scent, her heart sinking at the betrayal. A glint of glass caught her eye. She unearthed a vial, its label marked with chemical runes, proof of Vance's poison. Footsteps crunched nearby, and Kanti dove behind a boulder, her pulse thundering as a guard passed. She clutched the vial, its weight a promise of justice, and slipped away, the hill's spirits urging her on. Back at the cave, she hid the evidence, her mind racing with plans to find Laura, hope flickering like a fragile flame. Kanti held the vial, its cold glass a testament to Vance's cruelty, her anger simmering like a storm. She showed it to Adsila, his eyes wide with understanding, his small voice suggesting they tell Laura. Kanti nodded, but fear gnawed at her. Leaving the cave risked capture. She recalled Laura's promise to test evidence, a thread of trust amid her doubts. Planning a secret meeting, Kanti tucked the vial into her shawl, its presence a heavy secret. She soothed Adsila, promising a swift return, though her heart ached at his frail form. Stepping into the dawn, she moved with purpose, the hill's violated earth spurring her to expose Vance's lies, her love for Adsila a guiding star. Laura paced in the abandoned barn, her face taut with worry as Gideon's threats echoed in her mind. He had cornered her at home, his fist pounding the door, demanding she drop her investigation. Laura, defiant, recorded his snarls on a hidden device, her hands steady despite her fear. He warned of harm to her family, his eyes cold as steel, but she slipped away, heart racing. Sending a desperate note to a colleague, she fled to meet Kanti, her resolve unbroken. Gideon, discovering her absence, stormed Vance, his rage a dark promise of pursuit. Laura checked her recorder, its evidence, a weapon, her thoughts on Kanti's fight, knowing their paths were now bound by danger. Kanti slipped into the barn, the vial heavy in her shawl. Her eyes meeting Laura's, she revealed the poison, her voice low but fierce, recounting the dead fields. Laura took the vial, her fingers brushing Kanti's, promising a chemist's analysis to damn Vance. She shared her contact with a federal agent, a faint hope of justice but admitted Gideon's threats, her voice trembling. Kanti's trust wavered, fear of betrayal sharp, yet Laura's earnest eyes held her. They planned to find more evidence, Laura urging Kanti to search Vance's camp again. As they parted, Kanti's heart thudded with purpose, the vial's truth a spark against the darkness, her son's life urging her forward. Kanti returned to the Shoshone camp, the vial's secret burning in her chest. Hastian met her with a glare, accusing her of abandoning tradition for Laura's schemes. She pleaded, showing the vial, its poison a cry of the hill's pain, but Hastian scoffed, calling her tale a lie. Young warriors backed Kanti, their voices clashing with elders, the camp alive with tension. Kanti's heart sank, her people's doubt a wound deeper than Vance's threats. Hastian banished her, his words final, leaving Kanti to stumble away, tears blurring her vision. By a stream, she knelt, the hill's silhouette, a distant call, her resolve to fight unbroken, despite her isolation. Baxter's voice boomed through town, declaring Kanti a fugitive, a fat reward for her capture. Posters with her face littered the streets, each one a noose tightening around her. A farmer's tip sent Baxter's men scouring the hill's edges, their lanterns bobbing like predators. Kanti, warned by a Shoshone scout, felt panic grip her, the cave now a fragile sanctuary. She piled rocks at its entrance, her hands scraped and bleeding, hiding their traces. Baxter's dogs howled in the distance, their cries a grim promise. Kanti held Adsila's bracelet, her fear for him a fire that burned away doubt, vowing to stay hidden until she could strike back. Adsila's coughs grew jagged, each one a blade in Kanti's heart as he lay in the cave's dim light. She mixed the last of the medicine, her hands shaking, knowing it wouldn't hold him long. Herbs crushed under her fingers offered no relief, their scent a cruel reminder of the hill's poison. Adsila whispered his fear, his small hand clutching hers, begging her to stay. Kanti's tears fell as she rocked him, her powerlessness a suffocating weight. She thought of Laura, her only hope for more medicine, and resolved to find her. Leaving Adsila with a trusted Shoshone woman, Kanti stepped into the night, her heart breaking with each step away from her son. Kanti's heart raced as she scoured the town for Laura, her shawl clutched tight against the biting wind. She checked their usual meeting spots, the barn and tavern, but found only shadows and silence. Fear gnawed at her. Laura's absence felt like a trap closing. Back at the cave, she knelt by Adsila, his weak coughs a painful reminder of time slipping away. Adsila, barely awake, urged her to keep fighting, his trust a flicker of light in her despair. Kanti realized she had to face Vance's camp alone, the vial's truth her only weapon. She sharpened a small knife, tucking it into her belt, and kissed Adsila's forehead, her throat tight with dread. Stepping into the night, she whispered a prayer, the hill's spirits her silent guide, her love for her son a fire against the cold. Kanti crept through the pines, Vance's camp a glow of lanterns in the distance. She scaled a low fence, her breath shallow, avoiding the crunch of gravel underfoot. Inside a tent, she rifled through papers, her hands trembling, as she found letters detailing fake land reports. Her pulse surged. This was the proof to bury Vance. A guard's cough sent her ducking under a table, her heart pounding like a drum. She stuffed the letters into her shawl, their weight a promise of justice. Slipping out, she dodged a patrol, the forest swallowing her steps. Back at the cave, she clutched the papers, her mind ablaze with hope, though fear for Laura lingered like a shadow. The letters burned in Kanti's hands, revealing Vance's plot with Carter to poison the hill and steal Shoshone land. Her stomach churned at the betrayal, the words, unused land, a lie that mocked her people's blood. She read them to Adsila, his eyes wide with shock, his small voice calling it evil. Kanti's rage hardened. She vowed to expose them, no matter the cost. She hid the letters in a crevice, her hands steady despite her fear. Planning to find Laura, she soothed Adsila, promising victory, though her heart ached at his frailty. A twig snapped outside, and Kanti froze, her knife ready. the cave's darkness a fragile shield. The sower of herbs appeared, his silent nod a spark of hope, urging her to keep fighting. Gideon's boots thudded in the tent, his lantern casting jagged shadows as Kanti crouched beneath the table. Her breath stopped, the letters pressed against her chest, each rustle a threat of discovery. Gideon muttered curses, searching for signs of intrusion, but found nothing. Outside, a branch cracked. The sower of herbs hurled a stone, drawing Gideon's attention away. Kanti bolted, her legs burning as she followed the sower into the forest, branches clawing her skin. They hid in a thicket, her gasps muffled. As Gideon's shouts faded, she thanked the sower, her voice shaky, but his masked face offered no answers. Clutching the letters, Kanti ran to the cave, her heart a storm of relief and suspicion. Adsila's safety, her only anchor. Kanti studied the sower, his shadowed eyes unreadable as she demanded his name. He shook his head, saying only that he fought for the hill, his voice low but firm. Kanti's trust wavered, fearing a trap, yet his herbs had saved Adsila before. He handed her a new note, its scrawl pointing to a hidden cache of Vance's papers. She tucked it away, her mind wrestling with doubt, but the hill's desecration pushed her forward. Back at the cave, she told Adsila of the sower, his curiosity a faint light in his pale face. Kanti checked his breathing, her heart twisting at its weakness, and resolved to follow the note's lead. She kissed his hand, her fear a heavy cloak, but her will unbreakable. Adsila lay still, his chest barely rising, each cough a knife in Kanti's soul. She dribbled water between his lips, her hands trembling as he stirred faintly. Tears fell as she prayed to the spirits, begging for his life, her voice breaking. A Shoshone woman arrived, bringing herbs, their scent a fleeting hope that eased Adsila's pain. Kanti decided to take him to the tribe, where healers might help, her fear of capture outweighed by love. She carried him through the dawn, his weight light but crushing, the forest a blur of green and gray. At the camp, she collapsed, clutching Adsila, her heart a raw wound, his shallow breaths her only reason to fight. Kanti knelt before Hastian, Adsila cradled in her arms, her voice pleading for a healer's aid. Hastian's face softened, granting her request, but his eyes held a cold edge. A healer tended Adsila, her chants a soothing hum, as Kanti watched, her hope fragile. She showed Hastian the vial and letters, her words fierce, but he dismissed them as fabrications, his distrust a fresh cut. Kanti's chest tightened, her people's rejection a heavy blow. Yet she spoke of the hill's poison. Hastian ordered her to prove it, his voice final. Kanti vowed to hold a ceremony, her heart torn between Adsila's fading life and the hill's cry. She kissed her son, her resolve aflame in the dark. Kanti gathered herbs for the ceremony, her hands steady despite her grief, the hill's soil sacred beneath her fingers. She chose a dawn ritual, its light a symbol of truth, and wrote a speech, her words a call to fight. She invited Hastian and the elders, her voice firm, though doubt lingered in their eyes. Young Shoshone offered to guard the hill, their support a spark of hope. Kanti practiced her speech to Adsila, his weak smile a balm to her soul. She wove a new bracelet, its beads a prayer for strength, and placed it by his side. Standing on the hill, she sang to the spirits, her heart heavy with love and loss, ready to face her people. The hill glowed under dawn's touch as Kanti stood before the tribe, the vial raised like a beacon. She spoke of the poison, her voice steady, the letters' lies laid bare. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others skeptical, their whispers a tide against her. She read Vance's words aloud, each one a wound to the hill's heart, her anger raw. Hastian watched, his face unreadable, demanding more proof. Kanti called for unity, her plea echoing across the sacred ground. the spirit's presence a quiet strength. A young warrior cheered, his voice sparking others, but doubt lingered, a shadow over her hope. Kanti stood tall, Adsila's bracelet on her wrist, her heart fierce with purpose. Baxter's men stormed the hill, rifles glinting, his shout cutting through the ceremony like a blade. He demanded Kanti's surrender, his warrant a chain around her freedom. Shots rang out, scattering the tribe, their screams a chaotic chorus. Baxter seized Hastian, his grip cruel, as Kanti's heart thundered with rage. She yelled for his release, her voice lost in the gunfire's roar. The tribe fought back, stones and fists against steel, but Baxter's men pressed harder. Adsila, hidden nearby, watched, his eyes wide with terror, his coughs drowned by chaos. Kanti's world narrowed to one truth. She had to save her people, her son, and the hill, or lose everything. Kanti's heart pounded as Baxter's men tightened their grip on the hill, their rifles gleaming with menace. She grabbed a bundle of sage, igniting it with a flint, and thick smoke billowed, cloaking the tribe in a gray haze. Shouts turned to coughs as the soldiers stumbled, their eyes stinging, giving Kanti a fleeting chance. She darted to Hastian, yanking him from a guard's hold, her strength fueled by desperation. A bullet grazed past, striking Hastian's arm, and he grunted, blood seeping through his sleeve. Kanti dragged him into the forest, her breath ragged as the tribe scattered behind her. She tore her shawl to bind his wound, her hands shaking but steady, whispering apologies, leading them to a hidden grove. Kanti's eyes burned with resolve, the hill's violation of fire in her soul, urging her to fight on. Hastian clutched his arm, his face pale but his eyes soft with newfound respect. He apologized for doubting Kanti, his voice heavy with shame, admitting her courage had saved them. Kanti's throat tightened, relief mixing with grief as she nodded, forgiving him. He vowed to stand by her, his call for unity stirring the tribe's weary hearts. Hastian urged her to find Laura, believing her words could sway the world. Kanti shared the letter's secrets, her voice fierce, and Hastian's nod sealed their bond. She thought of Adsila, his frail form a constant ache, and promised to end Vance's reign. The tribe gathered close, their whispers a chorus of hope, as Kanti's spirit lifted, ready to reclaim their hill. Kanti met the sower of herbs in a moonlit clearing, his cloaked figure a riddle in the shadows. He spoke of a hidden cache of Vance's documents, his voice a low murmur, guiding her to a riverside shack. Kanti's heart raced, trust battling suspicion, but his herbs had saved Adsila, earning her wary faith. He handed her a crude map, its lines etched with purpose, and vanished into the night. She memorized the path, her fingers tracing the paper, the hill's cry urging her forward. Back at the cave, she checked Adsila, his shallow breaths a knife in her chest, and told him of the sower's aid. Kanti tucked the map away, her resolve a burning coal, knowing each step risked her son's fading life. Kanti reached the shack at dawn, its warped boards creaking under her touch. Inside she found a locked chest, its iron cold and unyielding, but a loose floorboard hid a key. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing stacks of forged reports labeling Shoshone land as barren. She snapped photographs with Laura's camera, each click a step toward justice, her heart pounding with triumph. The sower's note warned of Carter's shadow behind Vance, a deeper betrayal. Kanti sent the images to a federal agent through a trusted runner, her hope fragile but fierce. Slipping out, she hid the camera, her mind racing with plans, Adsila's face her guiding light. The agent's reply came swiftly, confirming the document's weight, a spark of hope in Kanti's weary heart. She shared the news with Hastian, his weathered face breaking into a rare smile, praising her bravery. The tribe gathered, their whispers of victory a balm to her soul. But Kanti's thoughts drifted to Adsila, his time slipping away. She planned to confront Vance publicly, her voice steady despite her fear. Hastian offered warriors to protect her, their loyalty a shield. Kanti prayed to the spirits, her hands clutching Adsila's bracelet, its beads a silent vow. The hill loomed in her mind, its sacred earth demanding justice, and she swore to fight until the end. Laura stumbled into the grove, her clothes torn, her eyes wild with relief after escaping Gideon's grasp. She recounted her ordeal, locked in a shed, her recorder capturing his threats, her heart pounding with defiance. A colleague's rescue had freed her, and she ran to find Kanti, her voice breaking with urgency. Laura played the recording, Gideon's snarls a chilling proof of Vance's cruelty. She proposed a public stand at Vance's headquarters, her eyes blazing with purpose. Kanti embraced her, gratitude mixing with fear. Adsila's fading breath, a constant pull. Laura's hand squeezed hers, their bond forged in fire, ready to face the storm together. A runner brought word of Carter's betrayal. He had burned the shack, destroying Kanti's evidence in a blaze of greed. Kanti's knees buckled, her hope crumbling like ash, the loss a punch to her gut. Hastian steadied her, his voice firm, urging her to fight on, his faith a lifeline. She wept, thinking of Adsila, his life tied to her struggle, and cursed Carter's name. Laura's eyes flashed, suggesting a rally to expose Vance, her recorder their last weapon. Kanti nodded, her grief hardening into resolve, the hill's spirits whispering strength. She clutched Adsila's bracelet, its warmth a reminder of her son, and vowed to bring Vance down, no matter the cost. Kanti and Laura huddled in the cave, plotting a rally at Vance's headquarters, their voices low but fierce. They chose a dawn march, its light a symbol of truth, and Kanti called on the tribe to join. Laura rallied journalists, her contacts eager to witness Vance's fall, her hands steady with purpose. Hastian agreed to lead the warriors, his presence a pillar of strength. Kanti wrote a speech, each word a cry for justice, her heart heavy with Adsila's fading life. She prayed by his side, his shallow breaths a haunting rhythm, begging the spirits for time. Laura checked her recorder, its evidence their final hope, as Kanti steeled herself for the fight ahead. The sower of herbs emerged from the shadows, his voice steady as he revealed himself as Carter's former aide, driven by guilt to aid Kanti. He brought a witness, a miner who knew of the poison plot, his testimony a blade against Vance. Kanti's heart lifted, her trust in the sower solidifying, his sacrifice a mirror of her own. She invited him to the rally, his nod a silent vow. The witness, nervous but resolute, shared details of Carter's orders, his words a damning truth. Kanti thanked them, her voice thick with emotion, Adsila's face in her mind. She tucked the witness's statement away, her resolve a burning flame, ready to face Vance's empire. Kanti stood before the tribe, her voice ringing as she called for the rally, the hill's spirit alive in her words. Hastian organized the warriors, their faces set with pride, ready to march. Laura prepared signs and a megaphone, her energy a spark in the dawn. Kanti polished her speech, each line a tribute to Adsila, her heart aching with love. Adsila, barely conscious, whispered encouragement, his frail hand squeezing hers. Seppuku, the tribe sang a Shoshone hymn, its melody a vow of unity. Kanti tied Adsila's bracelet to her wrist, its beads a talisman, and led the march, her spirit fierce, ready to reclaim their land. Vance sat in his office, his fingers drumming as Gideon stormed in, warning of the Shoshone rally. He sneered, ordering extra guards, their rifles a steel promise of control. Vance scribbled a speech, his words dripping with lies to paint Kanti as a savage. Gideon suggested kidnapping her, his eyes glinting with malice, but Vance waved him off, fearing a public uproar. He phoned Carter, demanding backup, his voice sharp with unease. Carter pledged men, his calm a stark contrast to Vance's fraying nerves. Vance paced, his confidence a thin mask, the Shoshone's defiance a growing shadow. He gripped a whiskey glass, its burn fueling his resolve to crush Kanti's rebellion before it could spread. The Shoshone marched to Vance's headquarters, their footsteps a thunder under dawn's first light. Kanti stood on a crate, her voice soaring as she held up the vial, its poison a symbol of betrayal. She read Vance's letters, each word a hammer to his lies, the crowd's murmurs swelling into roars. Laura played Gideon's recorded threats, the speakers crackling with his venom, shocking the onlookers. Warriors chanted, their fists raised, demanding justice for the hill. Vance emerged, his face pale, shouting denials. But the tribe's anger drowned him. Journalists snapped photos, their flashes capturing the chaos, as Kanti's heart pounded with fierce hope, Adsila's spirit urging her on. Vance's guards formed a line, their rifles leveled, his voice shrill as he ordered the crowd to disperse. Kanti called for calm, her eyes locked on Vance, her courage a blazing fire. The sower's witness stepped forward, his voice steady, detailing the poison plot, each word a nail in Vance's coffin. Vance stammered, his lies unraveling, as the tribe surged, blocking his retreat. Laura filmed, her lens catching every falter, her heart racing with triumph. Hastian rallied the warriors, their presence a wall against the guards. Kanti held the vial high, its glint a beacon of truth, her voice unwavering. The air crackled with tension, the hill's spirits roaring in her blood as justice drew near. Federal agents stormed the courtyard, their badges flashing as they seized Vance, his protests lost in the din. Baxter lunged to shield him, but agents wrestled him down, cuffs snapping shut. They took the vial, its poison a damning proof, their questions sharp and urgent. Kanti exhaled, relief flooding her, the weight of months lifting. The tribe cheered, their voices a triumphant song, embracing each other in joy. Laura hugged Kanti, her eyes wet, promising a story to shake the nation. Kanti's thoughts flew to Adsila, her heart aching, knowing he deserved this victory. The agents vowed to dig deeper, their presence a promise of reckoning, as the hill's spirit sighed in peace. The witness turned to Carter, his testimony unveiling the tycoon's role in the poison scheme. Agents raided Carter's office, dragging him out, his face ashen as he confessed his part. Kanti's jaw dropped, the scale of betrayal staggering, her anger a quiet storm. The tribe erupted, their cheers a wave of vindication, thanking Kanti with fervent grips. She spoke of Adsila, her voice breaking, his absence a wound that bled anew. Laura squeezed her hand, her resolve to fight on a shared vow. The agents promised a full probe, their words a spark of hope for the hill's future. Kanti stood tall, the hill's sacred earth under her feet, its victory bittersweet without her son. Kanti rushed to the camp, her heart lurching as she found Adsila still, his breath gone, his small body cold. She collapsed, cradling him, her sobs a raw, shattering cry, the world dimming around her. Hastian knelt beside her, his hand gentle, sharing her grief, his voice a soft prayer. Kanti clutched Adsila's bracelet, its beads a lifeline, his love etched in every fiber. She whispered his name, memories of his laughter flooding her, each one a dagger. The healer arrived, too late, her chants a mournful echo. Kanti rocked her son, her heart broken but fierce, vowing to carry his spirit in her fight. The tribe gathered, their silence a heavy tribute, Adsila's loss a shared wound. Kanti prepared a ceremony on the hill, her hands weaving sage into a wreath, each leaf a tear for Adsila. She wore her ritual robe, its colors vibrant, Adsila's bracelet gleaming on her wrist. Hastian led the tribe, their footsteps soft, their faces etched with sorrow. Kanti sang a Shoshone lament, her voice trembling but strong, the spirits listening. She buried Adsila near a sacred tree, its roots a cradle for his soul. His drawing of the hill rested with him, a piece of his heart forever home. The tribe prayed, their voices a chorus of love, honoring Adsila's light. Kanti stood, her grief a heavy cloak, but her son's spirit aflame within her. Kanti sat alone on the hill, the wind carrying Adsila's laughter in its sigh. She traced his bracelet, each bead a memory, her tears falling like rain. His courage, his trust, filled her, a strength to face the dawn. Hastin joined her, his words gentle, calling Adsila a hero whose sacrifice saved them. Kanti nodded, her heart raw but resolute, knowing she fought for him. She vowed to guard the hill, its earth now Adsila's legacy. The spirits whispered, their presence a comfort guiding her forward. Kanti rose, her grief a shadow, but her purpose clear, Adsila's love her eternal guide. Laura found Kanti by the stream, her article in hand, its words a blazing truth about the hill's salvation. She spoke of a cultural center, a dream to honor Shoshone ways, her eyes bright with hope. Kanti agreed, seeing Adsila's spirit in the vision, her voice soft but firm. Laura pledged to stay, her friendship a steady anchor, their bond forged in struggle. They walked to the hill, its slopes alive with promise, the future a canvas for Adsila's memory. Kanti felt him near, his smile a warmth in her chest. She began sketching plans, her hands steady, the hill's song a call to build anew. The hill stood free, its sacred earth untouched. Vance and Carter locked behind bars, their empire crumbled. Kanti led rituals, her voice a bridge to the spirits, the tribe's respect a warm embrace. Laura broke ground on the cultural center, its walls rising to honor Adsila's name. Kanti's heart bore his loss, a wound that never faded, but his love fueled her. The tribe rallied, stronger, Adsila's story a beacon of courage. She stood on the hill, his bracelet glinting, feeling his presence in the wind. The spirits sang, their harmony, a vow of peace. Kanti faced the dawn, her fight complete, Adsila's legacy eternal.